Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep the Mining podcast. And today's guests, as I have two of them, are Robert Quartermain and Jonathon Awde from Dakota Gold, a responsible gold exploration and development company with a specific focus on revitalising the Homestake District, which has a high calibre gold mineral, gold mineral properties covering about 40,000 acres in South Dakota. Robert is the chairman of the company and has a wealth of industry experience and is this year's newest inductee to the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame. Jonathon is the president, director and CEO and has a finance background, raising financing for various junior resource companies, focusing on institutional accounts, high net worth and family offices within the natural resources industry. And both are here to talk about Dakota Gold, who have recently formed, and what their plans are for the future and much more. So that's welcome, Robert and Jonathon, to the podcast. How are you doing, Robert and Jonathon?
Good. Good morning.
And good afternoon. It is here. Obviously, you guys.
Good afternoon.
Right? Obviously, you guys across the pond in obviously Canada. So just wondered if both of you guys can give us an overview of your career. Obviously, Robert, as I mentioned, you've been recently inducted into the Canadian Hall of Fame. So just wondered if you can give us a background of yourself and of your career. Obviously, a lot of our Canadian listeners will know you, but those outside of Canada and around the world, wonder if you can just tell us a little bit about your background, and obviously then afterwards, Jonathon, you can tell us about your career as well.
Great. Well, I born in a small town in St. Stephen, New Brunswick, on our east coast of the country. And I started my career by working in the Northwest Territories of Canada. I spent 4 months at a time for over 4 years in a tent doing prospecting. And that's certainly what got my love for discovery and certainly for the industry back then. I did my master's at Queen's University, and when I finished my master's, I went and worked for Teck Corporation, which at the time was a smaller Canadian mining company, but certainly a global mining company at this point in time. And the first two things they did for me was they sent me up to the Lamaque gold mine. So I was an assistant mine geologist at a 6,000 foot deep operating high-grade gold mine, about 8 grams of gold. So that helped me understand what it took to be a mine in order to be able to deliver ore to the mill. And after that, they sent me to a place in Northern Ontario called Hemlo. And that also turned out to be a high-grade underground gold mine. And so those two experiences later on would inform my decisions around the Pretium project. But in 1985, I was transferred to Vancouver to take over a small junior company called Silver Standard Resources. And it had then only 2 employees. Our market cap was about $1.8 million Canadian. In over 25 years, I grew that into a $2.5 billion company. It still operates today as SSR Mining. It's much larger. But we set the platform back then by finding good projects. As an exploration geologist with a mining background, I'm able to look at situations and I guess mining opportunities and assess them relatively quickly as if they were going to come into mines. And when you look at Silver Standard and our track record there, we picked up the Manantial Espejo project, which became a mine. We had the Perquitas mine in northern Argentina, which still continues to operate. And we're involved in a few other projects like that. So in 2010, I had retired after 25 years with Silver Standard. The opportunity with Brucejack Lake came up, and again, I started my own company, called it Pretium Resources. We acquired the opportunity, and I guess they say the rest is history. I put a team, and we went from a team of one of me to 7 years later in 2017 when we first poured our first gold bar. And the Brucejack mine has been making profit and pouring gold every day since then. It's well made over 1 million ounces since it started, made a lot of money, I think paid most of its debt back. And earlier this year was taken over by $3.5 billion by Newcrest. So my experience is underground mining, understand it. And that's the unique opportunity that I see here we're going to talk about today.
And Jonathon?
Yeah, so my background is capital markets and finance. Also did my education on the East Coast at Acadia University in Nova Scotia. Began my career working at Wolverton Securities that has since merged with a larger brokerage firm called PI Financial. So spent time there as a broker and a prop trader. And my first company that I worked for was with a company called Northern Star Mining that had an asset in the Val-d'Or Gold Camp. 2010, I co-founded a company called Gold Standard Ventures. I was president and CEO of that, raised them a few $100 million over that 9 or 10 year period. And they are now advancing a project towards production in the southern portion of the Carlin Trend. And a couple of years ago, teamed up with Bob to found JR Resources, which stands for Jonathon and Robert. And we were looking for opportunities and decided to go after consolidating and revitalizing the Homestake District in Leeds, South Dakota.
So obviously both of you have now joined forces to start obviously a new company, Dakota Gold Corp, which was listed on the New York American Stock Exchange under the ticker DC this year. So Jonathon, I wonder if you can tell me a little bit about the company, and then Robert, I wonder if you can tell me what made you come out of retirement to advance this project.
Sure. So when we first were shown this opportunity, it was a small, undercapitalized exploration company, and we saw an opportunity to consolidate and roll out the district, leverage our relationship with Barrick, as Barrick had bought Homestake Mining in 2000 and immediately shut the mine down. The transaction closed in 2001. So this opportunity sat in Barrick's closure group for almost 20 years. And what changed was new leadership coming into Barrick and being open and more entrepreneurial. And we went down and toured the project, and were enamored with the geology and the opportunity to consolidate and have a district scale land package, but more importantly, to get access to Barrick's data, which has informed this larger consolidation effort we've undertaken. And we announced our first results last week. And we had a very clear mandate. We wanted this to be a US focused company, sole listing on the NYC exchange. Homestake Mining was the longest, it still to this day is the longest listed company in the history of the NYC at 125 years.
Wow. And obviously, Robert, coming out of obviously retirement, what makes this project great for you to come out of retirement?
There's a few things for it. The first is the opportunity for discovery. As I said, as an exploration geologist, and what I did both with Silver Standard and most recently with Pretium, is looking at an opportunity as I did with Pretium. There were a few drill holes, there was some high grade. I took a thesis, I think there's a high grade mine here. In the case of what we're doing with Dakota, the best place to look for gold mineralization is in the shadow of a head frame, as they say. So the old Homestake has been largely mined out. They mined 41 million ounces there over the 125-year history. But there are huge areas where there are exploration drill holes done back in the 1990s, which were never really followed up. And you have to know, in 1990, the gold price was $300 an ounce. It's now 6 times that. So what wouldn't have made ore at that point in time now is something that can make ore. And I know from my own experience up at the Brucejack mine, right, its average grade is 8 to 9 grams. And so if you find that material, that can make ore. The mine at Homestake, its cutoff grade was 0.2 ounces, or about 7 grams of gold per ton. So you can think nowadays. The other key thing is our Chief Operating Officer, Jerry Aberley, put together a great team of individuals who've worked and lived in that area and worked at the mine 20 and 30 years ago. So they have local knowledge. And so that was another attractive feature for me, that they're my age, but they have my experience level. So we can look at data. As Jonathon pointed out, we have 125 years of data that's exploration throughout the region that's never been really followed up systematically as we can. And the third was location. I've worked in 40 countries around the world, had operations or built mines or constructed with development projects in perhaps 18. It's nice to be back in somewhere that's close to home, but also in a state where there's actually mining going on. You have the Wharf mine adjacent to us. So you have a mining friendly state, and therefore that makes it easy as you want to go through and develop a mine. So it's largely those three things, you know, the opportunity for discovery, good quality people, excellent location. And I said, I've got one more in me. So let's go do this.
Yeah. Obviously, you mentioned that the mine closed around the year 2000. So in your opinion, what has changed in the past 20 years that makes the project worth revitalising? And I suppose, what did you see that possibly Barrick didn't see?
You know, I'll take that question. Oh, I'll take that question first. Yeah, I think the key thing for me with those three things that I talked about was first the fact that you have a large area that has not been explored at all for numerous years. And there are discoveries hold which need to be, you know, or holes that made in intersected mineralization that need to be followed up. And so that became one key opportunity. And again, the main driver for me was the fact that you had this increase in gold price. And no one has looked at it through an $1,800 gold price lens. As Jonathon pointed out, they looked at it through a $300 gold price lens, and that caused them to shut down the operation and put an enclosure group. But it was those opportunities that excited me. So I'll put it back to Jonathon.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned earlier, it was when Barrick and Randgold merged, new leadership with, you know, running Barrick, Mark Bristow came in and said, look, if it's not a tier 1 or tier 2 asset or strategic, you know, get rid of it. And because this was in their closure group, this followed on 2 other deals that Barrick has done successfully out of their closure group, being Skeena Resources and K92. Both have well over $1 billion market cap, and these were in Barrick's closure group for years. So we came in with a sort of fresh perspective and that local knowledge, local expertise. As Bob had said, Jerry was the last mine manager at Homestake and has put together a phenomenal team. These guys were really chomping at the bit to do this, but just never had the capital to acquire a land package and to incorporate this data.
Obviously, Dakota Gold just released their first drill results for the Mortland Gold Project on June the 2nd. I just wonder if you can tell me what those results actually mean for the company.
Yeah, I think it was our first hole at our Maitland project, which is contiguous with the Homestake mine, and Homestake had made a discovery called the North Drift Discovery in 1994, and we're drilling the up dip portion of that North Drift Discovery. So I would say, before I pass it on to Bob, sort of we're beginning to see proof of concept, proof of our geological model, which we think is really important and will help inform and allow us to vector towards more zones of gold mineralization in this first phase.
Right, and I would say the key takeaway for me is we took one drill hole. We drilled it in an area where there was no known mineralization. We were drilling it as a geological test, and we went in and we actually hit gold mineralization, and we, you know, of some economic opportunity. So that was exciting for me. Take your first drill hole and you actually make some discovery with respect to it. And so that's the first key thing. The other was that we did hit Homestake formation underground in this hole at some depth, and allows, as John pointed out, that the claim boundary with the old mine has stopped at is where the Maitland property starts. And so we have 4 or 5 miles of strike length, which has not been well tested. And that now shows us proof of concept. We've gone down, we've hit gold. Now we just have to do more drilling. When you look at projects I've been involved with, like the Hemlo mine, they drilled 70 holes before they made, the discovery for the Hemlo project up at Brucejack. I think we were at hole 84 before I could start to crystallize it. So here we've gone, put our first hole in, have hit proof of concept. So now it's drilling more and seeing how we can go and find one of the old ledges. You know, what's key about the Homestake mine for me is you've got 41 million ounces spread across just a couple of miles. It's one of the most concentrated areas of high-grade gold mineralization in the world. So you have a lot of gold in a small space. So if you look at the amount of opportunity we have along strike now, incredible opportunities, but we have a few. Not only do we have drilling the old Homestake iron formation, which has the high grade in it, but there's also the lower grade material near surface that we have at Maitland or Richmond Hill, which is similar to the Wharf mine, which also has been operating for over 20 years. It's a 1 gram more conventional mine, open pit, kind of a lower grade. So we had these two opportunities, and that's what exciting. We hit tertiary mineralization, we hit homestake mineralization. So first drill hole, lots more to come.
I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about around the financing of the project, and I think probably Jonathon, that's more your area.
Yeah, I think, you know, Bob and I have had access to capital markets for years, and it's really important when you're starting out a new venture to be well capitalized. One of the primary reasons why a lot of junior mining companies fail is because they're undercapitalized and their timing is off, and they go back to the market when they need money, and the market knows that, and it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So last summer we raised 50 million US. We didn't pay a commission. We used what we would have paid, you know, the brokers to establish an ESG fund, which we're going to start to talk about over the next few months. And really, this is just leveraging relationships that Bob and I have. And we got a lead order last summer, and we're able to raise 50 million. We actually turned away a bit of money. We upsized the deal twice, and we've had great support from you know, a bunch of key institutions, a few, you know, high net worth individuals. And it's important to note that management also owns almost 30% of the company. So it's really important that management has skin in the game. Management has been continuing to buy and purchase shares in the open market, because that alignment is so important. You know, one of the things that drives Bob and I crazy is when you see groups that have no skin in the game and they just have stock options or RSUs and don't, you know, aren't in the trenches with their shareholders. Because one thing about, you know, the commodity markets is you're going to have cycles, and, you know, when times are tough, they're tough, and you have to make sure every dollar counts. And, you know, look at things through the lens of, you know, are we allocating shareholder resources properly and diligently?
Yeah. How would you compare your project with other projects in the surrounding area and other assets in the surrounding area?
Well, I think still to this day, the Homestake mine is the largest banded iron formation hosted deposit in the world. So I don't think there's anything else like it of its kind still to this day. You know, as Bob said, the Wharf mine that belongs to Core Mining is in operation. It's a really well-run operation, but it's in a different unit of mineralization, and it's an open pit mine, whereas Homestake was predominantly an underground mine, and they were mining from what's called Homestake formation. So really in the area, there's not really anything else like it. You know, and we feel very strongly that there's, just with what we have found from this data mining, from getting all this you know, access to the data from Barrick, that there's you know, we're on the cusp of making multiple discoveries just with what we see historically from the drill database.
And I suppose, Robert, you're from a geology perspective. How would you add anything else?
No, I would just go to the point that you know that Jonathon has made, is there is the Homestake mine, and then we have all the surrounding ground around it. So as a result of that, we think that there's lots of opportunity for a wide variety of discovery models because of the extensive ground that we have and the few different types of mineralization which occur down there. And so there's no one really competing in the area. Over the last 2 years since Jonathon and I were showed the opportunity, it's allowed us to come in quiet and pick up much of the ground. And as he pointed out, we raised a considerable amount of money, which helps us do our drilling, but also much of the property in the area was freehold property. And so the mineral rights came with the surface rights. So that allows us also to be able to go through the appropriate permitting process to be able to come in and drill test our project, but it also allows us to do that quite efficiently and expeditiously. So there's a lot of good opportunities that come from the fact that we're in an old established mining camp. And you can basically drive from the office to anywhere we're drilling, you know, in 30 to 40 minutes. So it's much different than the Brucejack project where, you know, you're 6,000 feet up in a mining glacier and, you know, a couple thousand kilometers north of Vancouver. So that's what I like. It's location and the opportunity that we have this large land package with very little competition from anyone else.
Robert, obviously you're going to be joining the Canadian Hall of Fame this year as one of the newest inductees. Can you tell me about your incredible 40 years working in obviously the resources industry, and also what keeps you interested after all these years?
Well, the first thing that keeps me interested is discovery. Similar to what we just announced, that higher grade intersection we made at Dakota. That's key for me, because you find a discovery, you follow up. You can imagine in a 40-year career, I've drilled many drill holes that have had no results in them, or projects which just haven't panned out. But when you look at what we're able to do with Silver Standard, with a few of the projects there, which were again discoveries we made, and the most important in my career would be the Pretium opportunity. I looked at a piece of drill core and I said, this is different. And it strikes me from all of my experience that that's what I would be able to do. But, in my career, I've worked all throughout Africa, all throughout, Latin America, every province in this country, spent a lot of time in the Northwest Territories, worked in China, worked in Russia. So I have an incredible experience globally that helps inform my decisions. And, working with Jonathon, and particularly the mature group that we have down at Dakota, we can make decisions relatively quickly because we're informed from our experience. And so it's been an incredible career. It started in 1976, so I guess we're 46 years into it now. And the adventure continues. We have an adventure here at Dakota, so I'm excited about what I'm going to do. So Mining Hall of Fame doesn't mean I've been put to pasture, I guess. It just means that I've been acknowledged for the contributions that I've made to our industry by, creating almost $10 billion of value. I guess when you look at Silver Standard, SSR Mining, Pretium, I was initially involved with Western Copper Holdings, which became Western Silver, which is now part of the Newmont Group, and then many others around that. But it's discovery. It's getting that drill hole in. And I say last week when we announced our first drill hole, that's what I said, that's great. Let's keep going.
And do you think Dakota Gold could be another Silver Standard?
Maybe a gold standard. There's not too much silver
standard.
down. It'd be more of a gold standard plus, I would think. And I said, 25 years ago, I started Silver Standard with one individual. It panned out okay for shareholders. The same with Pretium. Shareholders did well on it. Jonathon's point, I own 10% of the company. And as a result of that, that's all I do. I work strictly for this company. I'm retired on my island, and I spend some time there with my flower garden. I have almost a beautiful English garden here for those who understand them. We've had great amount of rain this fall, so that's been able to, or this spring, I should say, so that's been able to keep me focused. But yes, that's why I came out of retirement. That's when I sat with Jerry Aberley and looked and said, what if we go put a first drill hole, we hit something, we kind of get the what if, show it a bit of proof of concept. So now let's continue to let the drill bit talk and give us the results we need.
Yeah. Jonathon, I wonder if you can just tell us a little bit about the capital markets today and what you've learned over the past 15 years in business.
Yeah, look, I think one thing that really stands out is when there are windows in the capital markets, when they're open, you generally have to be there, or raise money when you don't need it, when you can, when no one's expecting it, because when the street looks at your share price, looks at your financials, and then you need capital, coincidentally your stock's going to start to go down. So I think just having taking a longer term view, being aligned with shareholders, and just being not being reactionary, and looking at this as a long-term business. And just that is, not every target, not every project's going to work out, and have a rigorous, kind of filter for that. And that's one of the things that really stood out for me when I first met Bob, was just the way he thinks commercially and strategically, and putting, shareholders first. And I think there are a lot of companies that don't do that. So I think those are some really key things that I've learned over the last 20 years.
Yeah, and obviously, if we have listeners that are listening that are looking to invest, why would they invest in Dakota Gold?
Well, I think that alignment with shareholders. I think that the fact that one of the co-chairmen and the CEO, own over 20% of the company, and are still buying during, challenging market conditions. If you look at when we first invested into this company, we had less than 3,000 acres. So we've grown this land package to over 45,000 acres. We have largely completed our phase 1 portion of our strategy, which was to consolidate as much of the low-lying fruit as we could, and to complete this merger. And again, first day of trading on the NYSE was April 5th. The vote was completed on March 24th. All 4 resolutions were passed. So we feel like we're just getting started. We're still finding nuggets of information from getting access to this Barrick data, that was never consolidated, that was never put under one roof, never digitized. And it's been a really fun experience. And as Bob said, Jerry Aberley has put together a world-class team, and people are excited by what's going on here. And I think that, again, this first hole is, for me, it's proof of concept. Geological model has been confirmed and largely proved. We wanted to hit tertiary mineralization. We wanted to hit homestake formation. We did that both in the first hole, and thousands of feet away from any other historical mineralization. And that's our first hole. And we now have 3 rigs. So I think the latter half of this year will be, catalyst rich in terms of drill results. You will see some additional land consolidation, not to the magnitude and scale from increasing net mineral acres as we've gone from 3 to 45, but sort of smaller and strategic. You will see us start to talk about some ESG initiatives we're working on, which we're really excited about. So I think that's really what to expect in the latter half of the year.
Okay, and I was just going to say, and obviously concluding, I wondered if you could just tell us what the outlook is for the rest of this year going into next year, and also if there is any last thoughts that you want to share with our audience.
Well, I think I just sort of went through some of the catalysts and what to expect in the latter half of the year. We're relatively well funded. I think you can look at potentially Dakota Gold getting into some of the ETFs, which I think would be really important to get access to some of that passive money. But this is still to this day the largest iron formation hosted deposit in the world, and we feel that we're getting into on the cusp of making multiple discoveries in different units on the same land package. And I think that's really special. It's really rare, it's unique. And I think there's been such a shift towards politically safe jurisdictions in tier 1 locations, and I think we check those boxes.
And Bob, just wonder if you had any last thoughts.
Yeah, I would follow up with Jonathan on that. Lots of drill results coming out through this year, so excited to see what those look like in its location. One of the key reasons for me coming back out of retirement and getting involved in this is because it's location in a safe jurisdiction where you can operate and function with the rule of law. And so I think that's important in certainly a lens that many people will continue to look through projects as they go forward. And so excited about what's to come. Good first drill hole result and many more to follow up through the rest of the year.
Yeah, Robert and Jonathan, really appreciate your time in sharing obviously the start of this journey, and obviously wish you well for the future. And maybe you want to come onto the podcast either later this year, beginning part of next year, and give us an update.
Great.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if our audience wants to reach out to you, if they've got any questions or want to find out any more information, how can they go about doing that? Do you have any social media platforms that you like to share with us?
We do, and please be directed to our website. All of my contact information is on there. We are growing our social media presence through Twitter and LinkedIn. And again, all that information is on our website, which is dakotagoldcorp.com. And really appreciate your time and look forward to updating your audience in the future.
Yeah, and thank you. We have all those links to all your social media channels below accompanying this podcast, and also if they're watching on the YouTube channel, it will be below as well. So guys, really wish you well for the future. It looks like you've got a great asset there, even greater team as well, as you've mentioned. So wish you well for the rest of this year and ongoing next year. For those that are listening, appreciate if you can share this episode, because I think this company and the asset that they've got are going to go far. So appreciate your continued support. Share this episode with others around the world who are listening, because this obviously podcast goes out to about 170 countries. So please appreciate your continued support and keep sharing this information and this content. So until next time, happy mining.